Tonight I'm going to kick things off with a word, or at least talking about a word, faith. Not the iconic George Michael 1987 kitschy classic faith. No. I'm talking about the concept of faith. We all have faith at some point. Faith in our fellow man. Faith in the Lord above. We keep the faith. We lose the faith. We have faith in other people. We hear it all the time. You think that guy can do it? Oh, I got faith in him. He'll pull through. He'll pull through. You have faith that somebody will pull through when they're ill. You have faith that somebody will be able to accomplish a goal that seems unattainable because you believe. You have faith, my friends. You also lose faith. Those are desperate times. I've done both. I mean, I have faith and I've lost faith, but I've always been able to somehow find a way to regain the faith. And that's not always an easy process either. We lose our way, and sometimes it takes someone else to help us find it, or it takes some sort of intervention to seek it out again, a sign, if you will. I don't know. But how does faith tie into tonight's podcast? We'll have a little bit of faith, all right? And we'll explain it to you. Hi, I'm Dino Tripodis, and welcome to Whiskey Business, a podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey, keeping in mind that faith is part of tonight's guest bottle. Heaven's Door, Bob Dylan's whiskey. Knock, knock, knocking on Heaven's Door. Hansberry's so proud of himself.
Yes.
Because this is the first whiskey he's actually contributed to the podcast. We've not tried it. We've not tasted it. We know nothing about it except that it's a Tennessee whiskey. This is the double barrel Heaven's Door, which is 100 proof. And Hansberry, while you are gloating and basking in your contribution, why don't you share other pieces of business as well before we get to our very special guest tonight?
Right. Well, finally,
Yes.
something that he hasn't tasted yet. Well, we want our whiskey business fans and friends and fellow whiskey lovers to share whiskey business. If you know somebody who hasn't heard it yet, or you think somebody would like to hear an archived episode,
Have some faith that they will like it.
just share it. Tweet it to somebody, send a text message. That's really, word of mouth is really doing a lot of favors for us lately.
It has been. The grassroots effort has been very, very good. We mentioned that in the last couple of podcasts. It bears mentioning again because, that's the best way to spread the word.
That's right. Also, Facebook helps. We're on Facebook.
Yes, these social medias that I hear so much about.
Instagram. Now, John Whitney is our YouTube producer,
Yes.
and if you can find us at YouTube or a Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. Thank you, and subscribe on that right there, and it'll populate every time. You'll get an alert on your phone every time a new episode pops up.
Oh, that's nice. It'll populate. I like that word. It'll populate.
Subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts, but specifically on iTunes, rate and review us. That's very helpful too. It helps other people stumble across our nonsense. We also have a new Twitter feed, Whiskey Biz Show. Is that right?
Whiskey Biz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. You'll find it.
You'll find it. And it's Whiskey Business on Instagram. It's what?
That's right. Whiskey Business Show or podcast. Whiskey
is
Business Podcast.
it-
I don't know. My phone. My phone has been working for 3 days, and you think I would
That's
have?
it, and you've lost all knowledge and memories
yeah.
of what was on there.
Yeah.
These things aren't embedded in your brain. I mean, they're not embedded in mine, but that's because I count on you.
You count on me to do
I
it.
I count on them to be embedded in you. I can't count on Whitney. Whitney can't remember what he had for dinner last night.
I don't know. My phone's not working.
Okay.
Okay. Whiskey Business Podcast on
thank
Instagram.
you. Whiskey Business Podcast
There you go.
on
Thank you,
Instagram.
guys.
A mystery solved. No wonder people can't find us. Oh, man. All right. So, yes, if you can find your way to all of these things, that would be great. And there's so many little puns in there, if you will, that lead up to our guest. Will we be on our best behavior tonight? Well, some say we should be because our guest is a fan of the podcast. He is a fan of the brown liquors, and he is also a Catholic priest. Father Nic Ventura. Is it Ventura or Ventura?
Ventura.
Ventura, I thought so. Father Nic, you actually sound like either you should be either Catholic priest or a WWE wrestler.
I've heard that once or twice. Every time I have to spell my last name, I always have to say, haha, no relation.
No relation. Dude, Father Nic Ventura is going to get in the ring, and he's going to rain down.
Lay down a smackdown.
I mean, you seem like you're pretty.
Well, I'm wearing a sweater right now, so he kind of hides a lot of my
big guy.
sins.
So you could wrestle if you wanted to.
I could.
Yeah.
I could. If I could do a lot of things, but I don't.
Well, we appreciate you're young.
Yes, I'm only 30 years old, and I'm going to make you feel old right now, Dino. Are you ready for this?
Oh gosh, I said, "Gosh." I'm going to say, "Can I just get him out of the way right now?"
Yeah, sure.
I'm probably going to slip and say, "Oh God," and Jesus Christ at some point. So
listen, we can make it a prayer. We're doing spiritual things,
okay,
so
fine.
you got a priest here. So.
Okay, good. So just mark them down and tell me how many Hail Marys.
Tally.
All right, I'll keep a tally, and we'll take care of it in confession.
How many Hail
later.
Marys and Our Fathers after the podcast is over with? Otherwise, I'll be very limited in what I speak. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'll
but
make you feel old.
how it make you feel old? When I was 3 years old, my mom would have your show on in the mornings going in. So, and I'm 30. So do the math there.
Yeah, that is the math. And you listened to the show all those years growing up.
Yep, just growing up
and became a priest.
And became a priest. So there's always hope. You did something good.
You didn't spoil him.
I did not take the right path, but others have.
You never know how your words reach others.
No kidding. I'm very curious because I knew before you got here that you were younger. Mm-hmm. And I've always been curious when it comes to the priesthood, especially with Catholic priests or any priest for that matter. Is it a calling? I mean...
Yes, I mean, when someone asks me, why did you want to become a priest? And I say, do you want the 2-second answer or the 20-minute answer?
Well, I want somewhere between 2 and 20.
2 and 20?
Because I have a lot of questions for you this evening.
Basically, it is a calling. You know, people think, oh, your family must have been so holy, must have been. No, if you looked at my family life growing up, it wasn't, your picture-perfect Catholic family. Yeah, we went to Mass on Sundays. Yes, we said our prayers at night. But I would say it's a very relatable family. We have our bumps, we have our good times, we have our sad times, we have our stressful times. But, it is a calling. It's just paying attention to, if we believe that God interacts with this world and, interacts with us, it's listening to what he has to say. So I guess that's kind of like the summary.
So how old were you when you first got the first call?
Yeah.
I mean, were there
There were multiple.
There were multiple calls? The first one you hear and maybe you're not really paying attention?
So I guess, I can give my 5-minute spiel. I remember they actually trained us in seminary to have a 5-minute, 15-minute, and an hour-long story. So I'll give the 5-minute one.
The long elevator.
The long elevator speech. So I remember I was in first grade at St. Mary's in Lancaster, and we had a religious sister as our teacher, and she had story time, favorite time of any first grader. And she stopped story time all of a sudden and said, some of the young men in here are going to be priests and some of the young women in here are going to be religious sisters. And I just remember thinking to myself, oh, that could be me. Then it stopped there. Then I thought, okay, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a doctor, all that kind of stuff. And then, just growing up, it kept coming back at different times and I always thought, yeah, that's possible. I don't see anything contradictory in my own person doing that. But it wasn't until college where, there were just some crossroad moments where I wasn't unhappy in college. I had a girlfriend, I had a car, I had, a job. I was getting good grades. I was studying pre-med at Otterbein, but I went on a retreat and something just hit me in the face where I was like, you know what? I am happy, but I could be happier. And it wasn't that what I was getting into was bad or leading me down the wrong path, but I just got this overwhelming sense, yeah, you're doing fine.
So the decision to become a priest wasn't like an answer to troubles or woes that you were having?
No, not at all. In fact, I kept on putting obstacles in the way of so one of the primary obstacles that I pulled up was, hey, I'm in debt already, and today if you go to college nowadays,
tell me
you
about
gotta, you basically gotta take out a mortgage to go to college. And so I said, I'm in debt already. And then, when I brought up that protest, the vocations director, who is another priest, said, you don't got to, first of all, you'll still be in schools, so they won't collect on your loans. Second of all, if they try to collect, we'll help you. Don't worry. Don't be concerned.
Oh, I thought maybe there was some sort of unknown clause that if you become a priest, you become absolved of all your student debt.
No. In fact, they triple your loan because they know you're not spending on anything else. So, whenever I buy a car, I don't wear my collar because if I have to buy a car and I'm wearing my collar, they just see dollar signs. They don't see
who does.
Car dealerships a lot of times.
Really?
Except the one down near my parish, they treated me very well, but.
I think the other way around. You would use it to your advantage.
Those of us who do not wear the collar think that the collar is gold.
Yeah, no.
We were going to ask if we could borrow one.
They just see, you can pay for it. Someone rich will donate for you, and you'll buy it, and then you can buy something.
I've never thought that in a million
That's fine.
years.
You don't have to. But you're not the one selling me a car, are you?
No, I'm not the one selling you a car. But I am the heathen who sometimes wish I had a priest collar on to get me out of something.
In fact, it doesn't even get you out of a ticket. I had my
officer.
No.
Come on.
I was going 35 and a 25, and they said, "You know how fast you're going?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do."
Yeah.
And I was with a priest friend in the car, and we both had
the collars on.
Both had the collars on, and she kept on saying, "I'm so sorry. I don't mean." And I'm so sorry to give you this. And I said, well, if you're so sorry, go back to Mass.
Really? Is that what you said? Or did you say, it's nice that you're sorry, but you're going to hell?
I didn't say no. No, I didn't say that.
I shouldn't say that. I should say that. One time, I waited for it, you're going to hell. And the priest said it, I'm like, I believe it. I believe it.
The telemarketer that just rubs you the wrong way.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started on
like
the
the story there.
telemarketer. That's another podcast, another story for another time. We are in the Lenten season.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to give up something for Lent as well?
I do.
Do you have to, or do you get? I've always wondered if you get a pass because you gave up so much to be a Catholic priest. It seems like you wouldn't have to give up anything for Lent.
No, I mean, I don't want to say all a priest is, but we serve a role as shepherds, as being there for people. We're supposed to be able to lead them closer to Christ, and so that doesn't mean if a priest is to be a priest just to enjoy perks or privileges, that's a problem. And that's not a good problem. And so I do give up things. For example, I don't mind sharing, I gave up drinking by myself. So doing this is a great opportunity. I can enjoy.
He wants to come
You
back tomorrow.
left yourself a loophole.
Yes, I did. I didn't know there's nothing wrong with drinking, but I said, you know what, I can give up after a long day, saying I would like to make myself a drink.
It's funny because I gave up buying liquor.
Yeah,
because I have like a whole shelf of liquor, and I don't need to buy a $50 bottle of liquor every time I go to the store. I have enough.
Right.
So I gave up buying it. I sure as hell
So
could
you
drink
gave
it.
up drinking alone.
Alone, correct.
Which brings up an interesting point because, and this is just a statistic that I came across. There is a lot of alcoholism.
Yes, in priesthood.
In the priesthood.
Yes, there is.
And why do you think that is?
A lot, just like why there might be a lot of alcoholism in high stress jobs. Not a lot of guys know themselves and don't seek help when they need it, and they try to self-medicate. No one else can understand me or stuff like that.
And I find that interesting because as a priest, if you were counseling somebody, you wouldn't tell them to go have a drink.
Right.
You would tell them to seek answers elsewhere, to seek it in prayer, to think in meditation, into yourself. You wouldn't say like, what you need.
You need a drink.
You need a bottle of whiskey, and it works for me. So
As long as you're with somebody.
You wouldn't say that. So don't. Where do you go?
Well,
other than the bottle.
Other priests, a counselor. You just seeking. I mean, the thing. One of my goals as a priest is also showing people that priests are human. We are human beings that, just like anyone else, who have just heard a call and are trying to respond to it. And just like any counselor, if you look at the profession of any kind of counseling profession, they are, or even a doctor, they don't take their own advice.
They need objectivity. They don't have any.
No, because
psychiatrists have to go to a different psychiatrist.
Yeah.
To
like,
get.
I can't hear my own confession. I go to another priest when I need to go to confession. So, it's a complicated. I mean, the human person's complicated. None of us are black and white. All of us have a bit of gray in us.
So and I figured that it's refreshing that you said that I have to go to another priest when I go to confession. Mm-hmm. So you feel the need to go to confession from time to time?
Mm-hmm. I would say. I mean, I openly admit at least every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the last time I went to confession.
Well, we can fix that after the podcast if you want. Listen, have caller will travel.
So every 2 weeks, you feel you do something that is worthy of confessing.
Well, I mean,
and I know these are probably small things.
I mean, it doesn't matter how small. It just So what we believe about the sacramental life, that there is real grace there. I am expected to handle, the highest things that the human being can experience. So, no one can ever make themselves worthy. God alone makes us worthy. It's God's work that makes us worthy to do any of this. So, the more I can allow God to work in my life, the more he accomplishes his work, and it's not me thinking, oh, this is Nic Ventura making a point.
Right.
I'm an instrument. It's still my personality, myself.
And do you feel the need to go, or do you think it's something that you have to do? And
that's a good distinction. I like that question. I would say it's a combination of both, because there's some things that I struggle with in my own life that I'm like, hey, I need God's grace in this area to improve. Maybe I'm a little too short-tempered, or I focus inward too much and would like something. I'm not going to go to confession to you, Dino. Mm-hmm. Sorry. But it's...
You could.
I could.
You wouldn't be the first.
I wouldn't be the first, but this is also public forum. So
I have played the role of the confessor.
Yes.
I have listened to a lot of sins over the course of my life from a lot of friends and family that have troubled me, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
But they've always felt like I was the one that they could come to, and that says something.
Well, and I think you hit on something that I think of. You brought up like the alcoholism and the confession. Like I think of priests are bearing this weight of people who will confess to them, and although they're not your worries, sometimes I imagine that could be heavy.
It can be. I joke. I say humor's a lot of way where I can talk about serious things. Is by my first Lent as a priest, I heard everything. You name it, I've heard it. Now that we have this thing in the church, the seal of confession, where the person isn't, it's not me who's judging them. It's me who's a conduit of mercy, trying to get that person healing. So like the most popular question I get is, what if someone confesses murder to you, Father? What do you do? And they say they haven't turned themselves in. I say, well, it's not my job in that moment. If I believe there's a God who's in charge, my job in that moment isn't to be judge. My job in that moment is to accompany the sinner to healing. Now, I might say, hey, have you turned yourself in? Will you consider that? In the light of true justice, this is something you should think about. Mm-hmm. But what the church believes about forgiveness, we do nothing to earn forgiveness.
I gotcha.
So that when someone comes to confession, that's not a point where we're supposed to slap them. It's a point where we say, all right, you're wounded. Let's get you healed. Here's the path to healing. And then healing for the church.
What do you do when you get some hard cases? What do you do when you get somebody who's seeking God's grace and can't seem to find it? And even after they see you, they feel good about it. They attempt to open themselves up to find God's grace, as you say, and they come up empty. Are they not looking in the right place? Are they doing something wrong?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I don't know all the answers to that regard, but sometimes these things happen on their own path. And the best comparison I heard from an old priest is that we're just caretakers. Mm-hmm. The gardener doesn't make the seed grow. They just tend the garden and try their best to make the environment
They water conducive. They fertilize it. They do what they can, but ultimately, if it doesn't grow, it
doesn't mean that person's abandoned. It just may not mean at that time. So, like, if I deal with someone who's struggling with addiction, I say, listen, you're going to struggle with this. Addiction is something outside of your control in as far as it's an addiction. You can take steps, but if you fall, it doesn't mean give up. It means get back up. Keep going. Don't give up. So, I mean, it's... Yeah.
It comes back to that word I started the podcast with, faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
You got to have some faith.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to come back to some of these topics as well.
All right, got it.
But as you take a sip of the Heaven's Door, first of all, tell me what you think of it.
It's really interesting. It has... so I'm drinking it with ice, so it's opening up more flavors as it goes.
It is.
And I'm getting more of a honey flavor now. When I first sipped it, when we poured it, I got a heavy molasses.
It's
Now
thicker.
it's like a... Now it's more like a honey kind of aftertaste on the
Toasted
sides.
in New American Oak, combination of 3 whiskeys, but I don't know what they are. They won't say what they are. It is from Mr. Bob Dylan, who is currently they're building a distillery in Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
So it's he's got the Tennessee whiskey, and this is the double. What is it?
The double barrel.
The double
bourbon.
barrel. Yeah, and
And they have a
also
rye.
the bottle is rather attractive
Yeah,
too.
so that design is supposed to be, I guess, Bob Dylan, among all his many trades, he's a metal worker now.
They're an
So
ironworks.
an iron,
I think the
yeah.
distillery is being built in an old ironworks.
Very cool.
In
So that's
Tennessee.
supposed to be one of his
Fascinating.
designs.
So, yeah.
It's a really good whiskey. I mean, I'm just getting all sorts of
I'm
notes.
not sure yet. I have not made a final determination as to whether
okay.
or not.
I took liberties. I wrote. It reminds me of a Bob Dylan song. It's tough to swallow at first, but it grows on you.
So, on that same page, if you will, it sounds like the opening of a joke. 3 Catholic priests go on the whiskey trail.
Yes.
You just did that.
Yes, I did.
You and 2 of your Catholic
the
priest pals.
Yeah, the pastor and the other guy that's kind of the same level as I am in terms of management and stuff like that. So the pastor said, hey, we have to manage 6 parishes. We're taking some time before Lent begins.
You went off to the Bourbon Trail.
Yes, we did.
And you hit how many?
9 distilleries.
9 distilleries in how many days?
4 days.
4 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you want me to list them off?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first stop was Buffalo Trace,
Uh-huh.
then Wild Turkey, Woodford Reserve, Maker's Mark, Jim Beam, Old Forester, Bullet, Evan Williams, and Angel's Envy.
Wow, bravo. Well
So I just went through
done.
the itinerary.
Sure.
So-
So that's across
done.
the
Yeah.
state,
That's,
man.
That's right. Yeah. Did you meet any of the distillers? Did you get to meet Mr. Russell?
Yeah, we got to eat Eddie Russell. I
You
actually
met
have a picture on my phone
Yeah.
of Eddie Russell. It's,
Nice man.
He's a great guy,
Nice
and
man.
so it was really, really cool to see all the to see it. I mean, after a while, you hear the same thing over and over again, but it was really neat seeing all the different bourbons and stuff.
And
like
did
that.
you see any distinct differences in each distillery on how they do things?
Yeah, not necessarily in the process, but maybe in their finishing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in their mash bill, and you know how they have their own distinct way of wanting to bottle it, but they each have this. They're gonna grind corn. They're
All
gonna
right.
grind rye. They're gonna grind whatever that third part, whatever they decide that third part is, either wheat or malt, and then they're gonna boil it, and then they're gonna put some yeast in it. So I mean, it was after a while we could start reciting the process by memory. But
And were the other 2 priests whiskey lovers as well?
they are.
When did you have your first drink of whiskey, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I come from an Italian family, so
Yeah.
my grandfather's policy. He lived in my dad. It was my paternal grandfather. His policy is whenever we arrive in Cleveland, he would get some Maker's Mark and pour a bunch of shots, and even the underage ones, it'd be a smaller shot.
Smaller
but-
shot, but still, it's
it would
good
be
for
a
the
shot.
kid. It'll help
Yeah.
him grow.
Yep, and that was the thought, and.
You didn't get a lot of whiskey when you were a kid, did you, Hansberry?
Wine or Bud Light.
Whitney, on the other hand, must have been drinking it all his life, because he's a giant. You can't see
Yeah,
him on
he
the
just
camera.
keeps growing, yeah.
He's like, what are you, 6'7"?
Go 7 feet. Well, yeah.
But so you had a whiskey, had it as a kid.
Had it as a kid. I mean, it wasn't like it was being shoved down our throats, but my parents didn't really have a puritanical view on alcohol. Like they wouldn't say, "Oh yeah, go ahead and drink, do whatever you want." But if we said, "Hey, we'd like to try that," they'd say, all right, fine, we'll get some, and
Right.
you can try it, and then I always thought that was a better approach rather than trying to hide it, because then we felt comfortable. It took away the appeal of being rebellious.
It seems like, especially in ethnic families,
Yeah.
Italians and Greeks and so forth, the stigma of it being this forbidden fruit.
Yeah.
It's no longer forbidden fruit. And I go, oh, that's just whiskey. Yeah, I had that when
Exactly.
I was. My grandfather used to pour me a little bit when I was 15.
Yeah.
And
And you just drink it,
and you become even keeled about it, as opposed to like, one of these days I'm going to get in that cabinet,
Yeah.
and I'm going to drink all the whiskey.
Yeah.
As soon as they're gone,
Yeah. I remember one of my friends stayed over one night and was like, hey, let's get your dad's liquor cabinet. I was like, okay, let me ask him. And I was like, what do you mean? No, you don't ask him. I was
You're
like,
ruining it.
and I was like, no, seriously. And I said, hey, Dad, can we try some? And he looked at his friend and was like, I don't know if your parents are allowed, but you can have some, but I don't know if your friend is allowed. So
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
to respect his parents.
Right.
And
Uh-huh.
we didn't end up drinking it, but that took away the sneaking appeal.
Did you ever get drunk?
As a kid, no.
No.
My parents wouldn't. I mean, they controlled that pretty.
In college?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, after 21, yes, I've been drunk plenty of times.
Don't lie to me, Father.
I've not been
After 21 or before 21?
After 21.
After 21.
After I will put my hand on a Bible if you got it here. If
No,
if
there's
not,
a
I
lot
got
of
one in my
yeah,
car.
right. There are literally thousands of books in this house. I'm not sure if the Bible's one of them.
We can change that. No, I've had drinks, but I was never. I might have felt good, but like a buzz, but never
Blackout.
blackout drunk.
You never actually made it a point to get blackout.
Correct.
drunk.
Is I mean,
Otterbein
before
Christian
you're
school?
21.
It's a Methodist private school.
What is?
Otterbein.
Otterbein.
That's where you went.
Otterbein,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was when I was there. It was technically a dry campus.
Yes,
All
it
right.
was back then.
2007, 2008. Now it's more moist.
Yeah, a bit more.
moist
What'd you
campus.
study?
Pre-med.
Pre-med.
So
That's right. You
biology.
said you're going to be a doctor.
Yep. So
Any regrets about not becoming a doctor?
none. Actually, I love being a priest. I love the science aspect of it, and I still keep up with some science journals and biology. That it fascinates me, but I have no regrets about the choice to say I'm going to be a priest.
I like the fact that you drink, and
I do too.
And I'll explain why. Because and there's a certain we deal, John Whitney and I, and Hansberry as well. We deal in the mediums of radio and television and film. And there's always that romanticized version of the Catholic priest, the hardcore Catholic priest who drank and smoked whiskey.
Yeah.
And granted, I'm referring to I just saw the Quiet
Like power
Man.
or the power and the glory.
Yeah,
or
the power. Yeah, and
something
I'm
like
referring
that.
to some older movies where that stereotype exists. But yeah, I mean
It's all things in moderation.
Is it?
It's approaching it in moderation. There's some things you can't approach in moderation because it's just there's.
Do you ever get judged for drinking by other priests? Some priests that
The
other priests that do not drink and think that it's wrong.
None that are my friends.
Excellent answer.
But I haven't been judged by. I've been judged by people.
By your parish, by your people.
One time I was out to dinner with another priest friend. We were at a place that had beers on tap, and we each had a beer or two with dinner, and they came up to our table and was like, you know what? We really need our priest to support us. And we were both like, hey, yeah, that's a great point. We do. And
Sit down, have a beer.
yeah, have a beer. And he's like, no, we need you guys not to drink. And we both looked at him and go, sir,
Because it's not against the religion.
No,
No,
I mean, in
it's
fact,
not.
what did Jesus turn water into?
Wine,
Wine.
baby.
Yeah,
that's
and over
favorite
600 gallons of
Bible
wine.
story.
So,
And he saved the good stuff for last. That's
Yeah.
what always got me.
yeah, so it
Why
wasn't
is that important?
well because it was higher. For lack of a better term, higher proof. It was the stuff that got you really drunk.
That away, Jesus.
Can I tell you a story?
Sure,
And it's
please.
probably the story that is probably the one comment that I've made in respects to religion that will not get me into heaven and might give me points towards hell.
There's always hope. Don't worry.
As you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. At one point, the Greek Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church, we were all together. We were one happy family. Then we both went our different ways. So I'm baptized Greek Orthodox.
I figured with a last name like yours.
Tripodis, right? Baptized Greek Orthodox. Well, my mother loves to go to church, and always asks me, "Have you gone to church? Are you going to church?" And I tell her the truth. No, I do not. When she comes to visit. No say in the matter. And she came to visit during the Easter holidays and insisted that we go to church on Good Friday. I don't know how long the Catholic Mass is on Good Friday, but the Greek Mass.
So so there's this beautiful. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your story.
Well, is exceedingly long.
Yeah.
Okay. And we went right from the beginning, and we stayed to the end. When I left the church. I was with my mother, and she was talking to some other Greek people that she knew, and a gentleman came up to me and said, "It was so nice to see you in church." And I said, "Well, thank you. Yeah, I was here with my mother." I said, "Man, it was long." He goes, "Well, yes, it can be long, but it's important." And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "So what are you going to do now?" And I said, "Honestly, that was so long. I'm thinking of going around the corner and getting a cocktail."
Were you at the Greek Orthodox Cathedral here in town?
Yeah. And he said to me, stone-faced, "Our Lord was crucified this evening." And I replied, without missing a beat, "Yeah, I'm still kind of broken up about it. That's why I'm going to go have a cocktail."
Well,
that one comment alone, I think, is the one that's going to send me to hell.
No, well, here's the thing. Time and time again, our Lord loved authenticity. Like, he told Philip in the Gospels, there's no duplicity in this man, and it's a good thing. So if you're authentic, that is a move in the positive direction.
I'm 100% into that. Like some of the funniest people
I think
I've ever met growing up were
Ma,
priests had
it's not
good
that
sense of humor.
Yeah.
You would know this. There's this old Bob and Tom sketch where it was Harry Carey doing the very first he was doing the very first baseball game ever, but he was doing it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I do. Yeah.
But he was doing it with all with Jesus and all the apostles on the mound, and Satan throws up or. He goes to the pitcher's mound and he's got a hefty ERA of 6.66. Anyway, that's one of the first things I remember growing up was my parents playing that for me and just my mom thought that was the funniest thing. So I think humor has an important role in any religion, but specifically the Catholics. I
mean, where we get ourselves in a lot of trouble is when we start judging people. I mean, we can. So here's a story for you. One New Year's Eve, I had a free evening. I didn't have mass that evening, so because it's a solemnity the next day. So, but the priest I was with had the mass, so I didn't have anything to do. So I went to a concert I had tickets for out at the old LC. I can't remember what it's called now.
It keeps changing names.
It keeps A&R Bar. I was at A&R Bar for sure, and met one of my high school friends there on accident. We weren't planning on. But I just saw her there, and so I started hanging out with her friends. And the guy there one of her guy friends started talking to me, and eventually the question comes up, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" I wanted to say I'm independently wealthy and I'm retired.
That would have been a lie.
It would have been a lie, but it would have avoided this next thing that I didn't want to deal with. I said, "Well, I'm a Catholic priest." All of a sudden, he starts justifying his lifestyle. "I don't do this. I went to Catholic school." And eventually, I had to stop him.
Why do people do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I said, "Dude, I don't care." I mean, I do, but
let's just be people tonight.
Yeah, let's just be people. But I was like, "Is it making you happy?" And he didn't really answer the question because if it is, great, God bless you. But now, if you're telling me because you're sensing something isn't right, or you're asking me, will this make me happy? Okay, now we have a conversation, but I'm not here to judge you, dude. Drink your beer.
It's like a pot smoker just coming in after smoking up a spleef outside, and he meets the buddy that he's been hanging out with all night, and he goes, "So I forgot to ask you, man, what do you do for a living?" "I'm a cop." "I don't smoke pot." "I don't smoke pot." "I don't smoke pot."
Yeah. And it's like, so
straight.
often, so it's, I mean, not judging, but also being authentic. I prefer someone, if I ask them, like, hey, do you believe in Christ? They say, no, I don't. I prefer that. Because then that's an authentic, I can work with a person. I can't work with a fabrication. A fabrication.
That's true for anything,
Well
I
said.
feel
Yeah.
like.
Well
Yeah.
said. Well said. Well said. I forgot to ask you when you were on the Bourbon Trail. Were you guys in collars or not?
No.
Ah,
We did
plain
not.
clothes.
Yeah, plain civies.
Did anybody find out you guys were priests?
Yeah, whenever we were not shy about it, but we just didn't walk around in clerics. So, you know,
Is
people.
that, is that what they say?
Yeah,
in
these are-
clerics?
these are clerics.
You're in clerics.
Yep.
When you're wearing the collar, you're in clerics.
In clerics.
So,
So,
and you wore it tonight.
yep, wore tonight because I had some work to do. I was actually before I was on St. Gabriel Radio is doing their spirit
yeah.
drive, so I had
Right,
to do
right.
things there.
Nice.
So,
I
don't
thought maybe
like
you
changing-
wore it tonight just to remind me from time to time.
Oh, no.
that, Dean,
I-
you're talking to a priest.
If I had it my way, I would have been in shorts and t-shirt.
You know, the fact that we're on the YouTube video, I think it adds a little authenticity
It's
to
nice.
it.
That's a nice touch.
I would wear mine if I had one.
I'm going to screenshot the hell out of this.
Oh, just don't misquote me, please.
No.
Look, Mom.
Well,
This counts as mass.
no, it doesn't. Let me go on record. No, it doesn't.
We're having some fun. We're having some laughs, and I'm glad because I would be remiss in this podcast if I did not get into this next section of things that I want to talk about, and I know it'll be a difficult one. There are about 70 million Americans who are Catholics in this country, and over the last 2 decades, a lot of them have left the church because of the difficulties that the Catholic Church
sex abuse
the
scandal.
sex abuse scandals in the last couple of decades. We've had movies about them here recently, and it seems to be and the movie was called Spotlight, and it
Yep.
seems like
It was
the abuse scandal is in the spotlight even
Yeah.
more so now than it was
back then.
back then with that when that movie took place. The Pope comes out and he says he vows to tackle the situation. He says that priests should be guided by the holy fear of God. And some people say that the Pope kind of softballed that one in the process. And we talked about privately the fact that there's been some misquoting as well in respects to the issue. Now, I'm not trying to. I'm not going to go on the attack here or the offensive and say, but how frustrating is it for you to be a Catholic priest and to do what you do and deal with what's going on around you when you are not part of that subculture?
So the first thing to say is there have been some horrible things done by people who say they follow Christ, and that is unexcusable. And what I've told my parishioners from the pulpit, what I've said time and time again, put it out in the spotlight, bring it out to the light, and get them out. Clean house. I am unafraid of that. You know, if it means that I have to go around in rags, so be it. It's, you know, we need to do what we need to do.
Are you disappointed?
I am very
Disillusioned, disappointed? I don't know what the right word is.
So the phrase that always comes to mind whenever I think about it, pray about it, is the church is not a sanctuary for saints. It's a hospital for sinners. So for me to be surprised that sin happens in the church, I'd be naive. I mean, the human condition is a fallen one. And so I'm not saying that I expected this to happen or I wanted this to happen. But at the same time, I'm like, well, you know, they said, I mean, there's a great quote. When Napoleon Bonaparte was conquering Europe, he captured a cardinal and says, all your priests that are under you have renounced the faith. Why won't you? You know, I'm going to destroy the church. And I can't remember the cardinal's name right now, but he turned to Napoleon Bonaparte and said, the clergy have tried to destroy the church for the last 1,500 years, and we've failed still. So good luck.
I was talking to a Catholic friend of mine, and when I brought up the fact that you were coming on the podcast and that we were going to broach this topic, they immediately got defensive and said, and I quote, "There's sexual abuse in other religions too, in other churches." And I go, "Okay."
But that
Other
doesn't matter.
professions, too.
I said, they go, "Why are they focusing on the Catholic Church?" And I don't mean to put this in generic terms, but the Catholic Church is, and I said, I apologize for putting in generic. It's huge.
Yeah,
you're
it's
one of the largest religions in
in
the
the world. Yeah,
you're kind of. I said in generic terms, you're McDonald's.
Coca-Cola.
yeah. I mean,
You're
it's
McDonald's. You're Coke
Yeah.
of religion. You're
Yeah.
huge. You're everywhere. And if McDonald's has an issue with their hamburgers that the meat is bad and people knew it was bad, you kind of have a hard time working for McDonald's.
Yeah, and I think where they're coming from on that is they're saying, well, the statistics show it's less than 1% of all priests are guilty of this sort of thing,
Of the abuse.
of the abuse. So what they're trying to say is like, hey, listen, it's the bad apples that are getting the spotlight, and if you look, the head of a seminary, the guy who's in charge of the seminarians, the guy who are studying guys who are studying to be priests, is called a rector, and that's like the position. It is the rector of my seminary when it was about 2010 or 2011.
Did you go here?
The Josephinum.
in
Yeah, I went to the
Columbus?
Josephinum. His name was Father Wayner, and he had said, listen, somebody said, oh, I will never trust a priest like you because other priests have, done this thing. And he said, well, I then asked the person, are you a brother? Yes. Are you an uncle? Yes. Are you a husband? Yes. Are you a father? Yes. You are 98% more likely to abuse a child than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where they're coming from, is like the likelihood of a priest. But to your point, because we are in a position of that thing, for us to even have the possibility of that happening, it's heinous.
1% is too
Yeah,
much.
it's too much for this.
1%
And,
is too much.
And all I'm saying there is I can see where they're coming from, saying, well, wait a minute, other places need to be cleaned out too. Why are they just yelling at us? That's a nonsense defense point. I see where they're coming from,
Right,
but
I get
it doesn't fly in discourse.
You go ahead, Hansberry.
Well, because I like how you phrase it. Is it frustrating? Because
Yeah.
I'm a Catholic, and I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, and
Here in Columbus?
in Indianapolis.
Okay.
Oh, then
sorry.
that
So I was
doesn't
gonna
count.
say, go,
It
Cena
doesn't. I don't know how to break this
Crusaders.
to you, but it doesn't
It
count.
doesn't count in Indianapolis. Well, so
Sorry.
and my mom works at the church, so we would have priests over at the house all the time, and I don't know if really we ever got into this much, but we have family friends priests that would be like, oh, let me take Greg out
Yeah.
to dinner.
I would not be caught dead.
Well, right, but this was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
and at the time it was very. You're talking about like movies. This was very the Tom Ford. Was it Bing Crosby who was the priest that sang and danced? It was very that
Yes, Greg. All Catholic priests
sing and dance. But like,
I have a story about that.
well, I guess my point is it's less about that, but the fact that it was because he was trying to be a positive influence on me in the faith and just as a male figure.
Yeah.
And we had one of our priests at high school was the Colts chaplain, and we
Yeah.
thought that was the coolest thing. And he took
Yeah.
us on a seminary trip. So like, I have great positive experiences of priests having these intimate moments
I mean, father-son
with
moments.
us.
Yeah.
And they were only of pure heart.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating for me to have experienced those positive things, to see these bad apples
Yeah.
who are just going to blow it. You
Yeah.
nailed it on the head. Even right now, if this guy, Father Nick, I love you, but if you asked me for dinner, I don't know if I would say yes.
I would so we have a school, and even when the kids, if a little kid comes up to hug you,
It's a pat on the back, buddy.
I'm always like,
yeah,
good to see
so,
you.
and that's what, and not that you need to be hugging everybody, but it's there. This 1% is ruined.
Doesn't that
Tom
doesn't
Ford's
that hurt you?
version.
a
little bit?
It's very because
Because you cannot. You might have actual joy
and being with families,
with families, but the fact that you gotta temper it now for fear of what might be. They always say perception is reality.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Reality,
And that's it.
Perception is 90% of reality. Is that quote? And one of the things too with that whole thing is it's all about what people are seeing and how they react. So, for example, if someone says, "Oh, can you talk to my kid about this?" I'm like, unless they're going to confession,
No.
I can't be with them.
And teachers are that way too now, even.
All it takes for me to be removed from active ministry is a credible accusation. You know what a credible accusation is?
Well, I'd like the definition from a Catholic priest. What is a credible accusation?
Same time, same place.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
And if I have no other corroborating evidence that someone could step
Wow.
up for me, that's it. So let's say I served at St. Cunegunda's from 2020 to 2023, and they had a grade school. And somebody in 2040 decided to say, "Oh, Father Ventura did something inappropriate."
It comes back on you.
And they said, "Well, where was it?" I was at St. Cunegunda's in 2022. Oh, well, Father,
same time, same place.
same time, same place. Father, is there anybody else who can vouch for you? And if I said no, now it can be proven wrong, but I'm already removed from active ministry.
So how do you deal with so many things that come out in print, be they the papers or books? There's a book by a guy named Frederick Martel, who is a gay writer, who describes in his book a gay subculture at the highest levels of the church. And his problem being the hypocrisy, the fact that these priests or these cardinals denounced homosexuality, but then in private lives led a double life. How do you deal with the hypocrisy? How do you deal
Personally,
when you find out someone has led that double life? Do you question why they even bothered to become a priest to begin with?
for them personally, it doesn't make me question my own.
No,
You know,
it doesn't. I'm not saying question why you became a priest.
Yeah,
but you're saying like why?
Why did you do this in the first place?
Yeah, why are you messing this up for me who actually had the calling, the sincere calling, and wants to serve the way I'm supposed to serve, the way that God intended me to serve, the way I want to serve. I almost said the F word. Why are you?
Please do.
Freak.
Dude, why are you fucking it up for me?
Yeah, I mean, when I
Sounds good.
when I
You've been bottling that one up.
when I taught high school a little bit as a seminarian, a kid acted up, and I said, "What the hell are you doing?" I mean, that's in other words too, but it sometimes gets the attention, so it's okay to say the F word. I'm going to try to avoid it as a priest.
that's
since I'm
okay.
on
No,
the
that's all
podcast.
right. No.
Maybe off the air I might. Anyways,
We ain't no St. Gabriel's radio.
No.
But then
No.
you're gonna confess it a week later in confession, and
Yeah,
everything's gonna
feel
be fine.
bad,
Me, I have to live with it.
yeah, you can fix that too, but that's another conversation another time. But at the end of the day, Jesus chose Judas too, knowing full well what he would do. And so,
Right.
and Judas had an authentic calling.
Yeah.
Jesus really did call him. Now, it gets into this interesting thing about God's providence and free will. How does that all work? Well, it's kind of like the relationship between a three-dimensional person and a two-dimensional being. To make that leap is kind of difficult, so we just kind of make analogies. But Judas was called too, but he didn't live up to the call. He answered, but then fell. So, on one end, I'm like, why did you do this? And then on the other side is like, well, maybe at the beginning they did have an authentic calling. But I don't know. I don't know their heart. And I think this is what causes scandal the most is the church's position on redemption. Is saying, even these people who committed these sins have a chance at repentance and redemption too.
If you're going by the letter of for lack of a better law, the letter of the Catholic law, they have a chance. It says right here, everybody gets a shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, and now maybe on this life you spend the rest of your life in a penitential life, living in sackcloth and ashes. But if a sinner, so for example, one of the examples I use in a high school class whenever I teach it, if Hitler repented at the very last second and asked for the mercy of God would have been given to him. Now, am I saying that's what happened? But that's how God's mercy works. I'm not the arbiter of God's mercy.
Right.
God chooses what he wants to do. So I think that's what a lot of problem is too is that sometimes these guys, they get caught and they're guilty. And then in the effort to recognize that repentance, the people who are trying to uphold the law mess up and realize, no, we still need to uphold justice. We need to punish these people. But then they try to say, oh, no, they repented, and it gets
There's
that mess.
there might be the letter of the religious law,
Yeah.
but there's also the letter of the
Civil law.
Of the civil law.
Yeah,
as
and they
well.
need to turn it in.
I mean, that's the problem in West Virginia right
Yeah.
now. They're suing the diocese in West Virginia.
Yep.
You know what that's about
Yep.
because they claim that they knowingly employed priests who were pedophiles.
Yep.
And I feel for you.
Yeah, the thing is,
I mean, I want, and as I read, I go, I want them to come to civil justice because I think when you rob a child or a young adult of anybody of that innocence,
yeah,
that is
it's the worst crime. I mean,
it's a horrible crime, Father.
You're hitting on a point which I struggle with a lot, and I just try to. I don't bottle up. I'm just like, listen, Lord, vengeance is yours. I can't do anything about it.
I told you that I wasn't going to berate or attack. I was more concerned because you were brought to us by a dear friend of us in the podcasting world, Lee.
Yeah.
And I texted you as well. I said I'm more interested on how you feel about it. Having, like I said, if you work for McDonald's and their meat is tainted and you don't, it's got to be hard to work for McDonald's at that point.
Yeah.
You're in the Catholic Church, you're a priest, and all this is going around you at a heightened awareness, more so than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And should be, because even at that 1%, even at that 1%, just because it's 1%
doesn't mean it's any less
evil.
Yeah.
And I was concerned, like, how. And I come back to the word I started with. How do you hold on to your faith through all this? Not only in what you do and how you do it, but faith in the fact that somehow all the right things will be done correctly. And can it be fixed?
Well,
I don't think it can be fixed completely.
So, I mean, not to go to Scripture or...
You could go to Scripture.
So, Christ says for human beings, this is impossible. But for God, all things are possible. And so what I've been taught about faith, what the church teaches about faith, and what I hold to is that faith is a gift. There's nothing I can do to earn my faith. It is a gift from God. It is something that is given to me that I accept and respond to. So when I encounter these readings or these things in the news, and I start questioning, okay, what the hell's going on here? Why is this happening? I take it to prayer, and the overwhelming response I get from God is saying, trust me, my grace is sufficient.
I have a hard question for you. I have a very hard question for you because you brought it up. I know you like you haven't given me some already. Harder.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier, I made a note that the biggest question I get is what if somebody confesses a murder? What do you say? And you told us what you think. What if you have another priest that comes to you in confession and confesses something of this nature? What do you do? I said it was a tough question.
It is a tough question. It's a very good question because I know people are interested in it. The first thing that I do is turn to God because, again, this isn't my power.
I understand. That's the guy you're working for.
Yeah, and so that's the first thing I would do. The second thing is saying, okay, you recognize this is evil. What do you think should be the next step after doing this? In my position as a priest, in that moment as a confessor, I don't have that authority. And I know this is where the world struggles.
I know, and this is where because there's people who are going to say, you should turn that son of a bitch in.
Yeah, right. And I understand, I sympathize with that sentiment. There is that part of me that says yes. But then I look at it too as, why am I there in that moment? Who am I in that moment? Am I Nic Ventura or am I Jesus Christ? And if I believe that in that moment I'm acting in the person of Jesus Christ, and I believe that Jesus Christ has all the power in the universe and everything beyond that, it's just saying, all right, Lord, you know what to do here. Use me as you will.
To find the right answers.
Find the right answers and go from there. And now the thing is, people who don't have faith will hear that and go, "Oh, that son of a bitch priest doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
He's
Right.
perpetuating this
He's
crap."
He's part of the problem.
And the thing is, I have no response for that. I can't. This is where faith and reason have a disconnect. They're complementary, but it's where I don't have an answer that'll make sense to anybody who doesn't have faith.
I would not want to be in your position. God love you.
Someone has to.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be. But in closing on this particular section, let me just say that that's. I think. How long you been a priest now? Look at the
4 years.
4 years. All right, 4 years this May.
Yeah.
You're a hell of a priest. No,
Wise,
come on.
Wise.
You're right. You know what?
That's because I have a lot of help.
I got a lot of help, but yeah. I think the Catholic Church as and I hear this from my Catholic friends that you guys are very spread thin right now. Covering a lot of bases. I know you're in Southern Ohio and Jackson. And how many parishes are you guys? There's three priests
we
covering
serve 6 parishes.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a declining, like, and now if anybody's listening who's from that area, like, I love it, but we acknowledge economics aren't in Southern Ohio's favor. Now in Jackson it's different. There's actually a new cooperage in Jackson, Speyside.
There you go.
Cooperage that's making barrels for whiskey. They make it for I knew this earlier, but into some whiskey right now, so I forget.
It's all right.
Are they hiring?
Well, they're not making the whiskey; they're just making the barrels.
That's all I need. I just need a job.
So there's some growing there, but it is a declining and spread thin area.
I want to thank you sincerely for being so upfront, honest, and not hedging on any of the answers. If you feel like this isn't an adequate answer based, if you're basing your answers on how you feel and how you think, those are adequate answers for me. Those are authentic.
I mean, those are my there may be some things I didn't talk about because I'm not comfortable or I'm not in a position to represent.
That's and I respect that.
Yeah.
I told you when we were texting that even though I was going to ask some hard questions, I would do my very best to be respectful.
Oh, you were. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it in a relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah, I think a lot of people bury it.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
not
my
afraid
wife's
whenever
grandmother
someone
would be
brings it
like,
up.
It's interesting
no.
because I came across some people who said, you're going to go after him? I go, I'm not going after him. He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But he's in that world where things are being done. So I need to find out how he feels and thinks about his work and what he does when all these things are being done around him, and that's to me a little more fascinating. Of
an
inquiry,
and I appreciate this opportunity. So
and I'm going to close it on a happier note.
Okay, great.
Because I'm going to bookend it because something Hansberry said earlier. You said I have a story about that. So he mentioned Bing Crosby was the priest that would sing and dance, and you said I have a story about that. So let's close things off with
was that Tom Ford? Was that right? Didn't he do the everybody happy go lucky? Catholics.
I don't know. Maybe.
Come on.
Sorry, dude.
Oh, jeez, leaving me out to dry. Wouldn't he like a Irish Catholic director who?
Oh, John Ford.
Same thing. Tom Ford. Tom Ford.
Tom Ford.
Who the hell's Tom Ford?
He's a designer. He's a fashion designer.
That's what I get for hanging out with my wife too damn much.
Like, who the hell's Tom Ford?
Yeah.
Now, granted, Tom Ford might be able to put together a nice cleric for the father here.
He's
before it's all said and done.
Probably too expensive for me though.
Something that if he ever has a Catholic
well, I stand
cleric.
corrected, but at least now I know. Now we're all on the same page.
Maybe Father Nick can go on the catwalk with something designed by Tom Ford at some point. But you said, see, I have a story about that.
Well, I mean, it's not that significant, but
No, but you smiled.
I
So is
did.
it about Tom Ford or John Ford?
No,
Okay,
no, about
okay.
dancing.
Oh, okay, all right,
I
okay.
used to tap dance, and I was.
Oh, I bet you do.
I can tap dance, and my dad's a musician, so singing and music is all in the family. So, yeah. So when
You
said
are a singing, dancing
yeah,
priest.
I can.
You
so,
are a singing, dancing priest.
Is it the Bells of St. Mary?
Yeah,
Is that
Bells
it?
of
That's
yeah.
it. All
Yeah.
right. So it's coming full circle.
Would you
after
say the bell, the bell,
bells-
plural, the bells
bells
of
of Saint
the bells of
Mary's.
Saint Mary?
Give me some credit for I'm a 35-year-old man who knows at
you know
least
what?
a little bit about that movie. Give me some credit.
It was John Ford who directed The Quiet Man.
Which I just watched, which was so terribly slow.
What is wrong with you? What is wrong with
He
you?
made me watch it. I'm a millennial, and they redid
hey, so am I.
They redid the coloring on it. It just. Thank God I had a Jameson Black Barrel to keep me company.
You didn't watch it with me. You didn't watch it. I think that's the problem. You need to watch some of these movies with me and get excited. When I
next
get
St. Patrick's
excited, I
Day.
can give you a reason to be excited because you're watching them.
I will say it was cool halfway through. Then you see the fight scene.
Yeah, the fight is one of the
You
greatest
don't.
fight
Yeah,
scenes.
you. I
I
figured
haven't
it's
seen
going to
this
open.
movie yet, so I need.
You've
It's
never
going to
seen The
open with a
Quiet
fight
Man?
scene.
No.
Halfway through has a
Father!
fight scene.
I'm as mad at you as I am at him now.
John Ford
How
is
have you not seen The
pro-Catholic
Quiet
priest.
Man?
Let's just put it that
Maybe
way.
I have it. I just don't remember it. I'm
I
sorry.
don't know how Tom Ford is, but John
And there's
Ford.
a Catholic priest in the movie. There's a Protestant priest in the movie, and they're
I need
buddies
to-
and they're pals, and they're both fans
need-
of John Wayne, who was a fighter who killed somebody in the ring and goes to Ireland to try to forget and put his past
you
behind
go.
him. He falls in.
Well,
Yeah, don't tell me everything. I need to see the movie.
It's like 3 hours to get to that point.
Oh,
Done.
okay.
Done.
Three glorious. It's not a 3-hour movie. It's a 2-hour movie, and it's a glorious. It's a
Felt like
glorious
3 hours.
journey.
Father
You
Nick.
oh my!
Felt like
And-
Good Friday
and-
Mass.
and-
It felt like 3 hours.
and you need a drink afterwards, didn't you?
Yeah. And one last question: when you decided to pursue the priesthood and become a Catholic priest, what did your mother think? Was she happy?
So, actually, interesting story. I was a senior in high school, and I came up to her and said, "Hey, Ma, I think I want to be a priest." And she said, that'd be fine, but why don't you go to college for a year?
So she
Just-
told you to kind of spread your wings a little
Yeah,
bit.
she
just
she
to be
knew,
sure.
and I'm glad she did because it allowed me to. Some other guys go right out of high school, which is fine.
It's rough,
and
though,
they're-
I would think.
It is rough, but if they're well balanced enough that they can handle it. At that time in my life, I had only experienced one type of culture, and Mom. Yeah, so it's
yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. You're good. Yeah, you say it out loud, Johnny.
Catholic Runspringer.
Yeah, run,
Yeah.
run Springer. Yeah.
So it just she wanted to make sure actually I was talking with her the other day and I was telling her I was going on the show. So one thing you need to do for me, you need to sign something for me. Since we
Since we had that story about the
Yes.
fact that your mom, I would be honored and flattered to sign something for
that's
your mother.
That's the only stipulation. No indulgences with that. So, but you got it. Greg got it.
Another Catholic scandal that we're forgetting about.
Yeah, it happened about 500 years ago. But anyways, so she said go to college for a year, and honestly, I didn't go to college thinking, I'm just going to go to seminary after this year. I went to college thinking,
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to do, and that's what happened. So
even when you're in college, it was still burning inside of you to be a priest, even when you had the girlfriend.
I mean, it was always in the back of my head, like as a possibility, but I was always like, "Oh, well, God, I'll just be a good Catholic husband." What you're really asking me to do is just be a good Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
But when I gave him some room to talk, he was like, "No, dummy, I'm asking to be a priest. Shut up, listen to me. You'll be happier." And he was right.
And I feel bad. I kind of lied when I said I'd wrap it up on a happy note. But I have one more question, Hansberry. What do you get? You got someplace to be?
No, actually, I was wondering if he was going to bring out the whiskey he brought.
I brought. Do we have time for that? I didn't
Yeah,
wanna-
we got time for that. We got time for that. While you're bringing out the whiskey, let me ask you one. Bring out the whiskey that
Right
you
at
brought
an
from the
hour.
whiskey trail.
Straight at an hour.
Two different ones.
You got the Woodford
Oh, look at
Reserve.
that.
Ah,
Engraved one.
nice. I'm curious about that one. Turn that one around.
This one is from Wild Turkey. It's their Prohibition style.
Nice.
Look at you.
So
Nice.
haven't opened
nice.
these up yet, and I figured it'd be a nice finisher. So you get to pick which one. I had one engraved at Woodford Reserve we called it to tell our parishioners. We said it was a priest
Don't
convocation.
open the engraved one. Save
Okay.
that. Open up the one that's not engraved from Wild Turkey.
Okay.
And I'll ask you while you're doing that. I'll throw the softball question at them, which is it? Do you ever think that it'll change, that they'll allow Catholic priests to marry? Because Greek Orthodox priests, if they get married before they're ordained, they're good to go.
So I have an answer for that.
Okay, good.
So technically, Roman Catholic priests can be married.
What?
Yeah.
What?
That's already
Yeah, get some shot glasses out here. We'll just sip it.
that is already a reality in the Roman Catholic Church. It is the practice in the Roman Catholic Church to not be married, for celibacy. Now, there's nothing wrong with married priests, but it's just right now we don't have the infrastructure for it. All right, let's say you have a Catholic priest who is married,
Yeah.
and they live according to the Catholic teaching on birth control and stuff like that, and no contraception,
Right, right.
natural family planning.
Sure.
Chances are they're going to have a bigger family.
Probably.
How are we going to support that family? I only make maybe $30,000 a year. Maybe.
Second collection basket.
Yeah, people are already struggle enough with the first one.
Here's where you could be a priest.
I could
Yeah,
be.
For the amount of money.
So, and then the second
I have to
issue
work Sundays though.
is
Yeah.
where do I have my priorities if I'm married?
It's tough.
What's my first priority?
Who's your first family?
Yeah.
That's
Who do I focus on?
Yeah. Those are good questions, but I also think they're kind of cop-out answers.
They are. I mean,
Because I think if you put your mind to it, you
you can make things work.
you make them work.
You can make things work, but I'm actually thankful for the celibate priesthood.
Yeah.
At least in my, it makes me more available. For example, today my schedule was I had school mass at 8:30. I had a staff meeting at 10. I had a meeting with a family with a special needs child at noon. Then I had stuff at St. Gabriel Radio at 4:30. I had another meeting at 5:30. Then I had this at 8. Tell me what married man and can keep his marriage
not Dino.
and can do that. Hey, I didn't bring that up.
I did. Don't let me do it.
So, but
Any normal
True.
man.
True.
but who can keep that kind of schedule? I mean, now,
But that's not a daily schedule, is it? Is it? Pretty much.
Pretty much. Like Friday through Wednesday. My days off are Thursdays.
Yeah.
And that's the day I kind of now I phrase it as day away, where I can say I'm not.
Right.
I'm just relaxing right now, recuperating. But it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on call.
Well, yeah, I would imagine.
And just being available.
He doesn't sleep, so
Yeah, and so one of the most invigorating questions that I can be asked as a priest is, Father, do you have a minute?
One of the most
most invigorating questions.
that's
Do you have a minute?
Because could it be a minute? Could it be about the lights? Could it be about their family's death? Could it be about the fact that some big thing happened?
1 minute could be 2 hours long.
Yeah. So whenever it's the most freeing moment I have as a priest, because if someone comes up, Father, do you have a minute? I say, yes.
For you, anything, my
Yeah.
son.
What do you need?
And I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to keep rolling with this.
No, because I just have a beautiful close.
All
after
right,
that
all right,
statement.
okay. Well, yeah, for this.
I-
All right, go ahead. I'll edit all this out except for on the YouTube.
No, on YouTube it's not going to edit out, and you just ruined my.
No, go for it.
I was going to say
He said,
I
"Do
was
you
gonna
have a
say-
minute?" And I was going to say, "This is how the nice Hollywood ending would have been." I would have been. He said, "Hey, Father, do you have a minute?" I'm going to say, "I'm glad you had 60 of them with us." And I was going to
All
close
right,
the
all right,
podcast.
all right.
Wouldn't that have been perfect?
All right, well, but I'm going to ask the same question. But I'm going to ask the same question, but
Wouldn't that
replace.
have been perfect?
It would have
Seriously.
been, but we already blew it. We already blew it.
Wouldn't the director Tom Ford have closed it out that way?
Tom Ford would have. John Ford would have made it last another hour. For the audio, this is the beauty of the unedited YouTube channel. Is
Yes.
that you're going to see all this, but
Yes.
this is all going to be edited out of the YouTube channel or the podcast.
There you go.
I don't know. I think you should leave it in. I think
Well,
it's
kind
kind
of funny now.
It's kind of fun
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
But say,
Maybe the women
let's
priest
get Father Nick one more time to say, do you have a minute? And then you can do
You what?
Your moment.
Oh,
It's acting,
really?
Dino. It's
Okay,
acting.
so I got to recreate it for the YouTube people as well.
No, for the podcast people.
For the podcast people.
He'll
Yeah.
get it. He'll get
Thank
it.
you, Father, for
Yeah,
clarifying.
It's okay. We record.
But Johnny, who does a lovely job of cutting back and forth to us throughout the podcast, you get to see the unedited version. So,
the most invigorating question,
even-
the most freeing question that I can be asked as a priest is, Father, do you have a minute?
and that minute could be
Could be 1 minute. It could be about the lights. It could be about, hey, Father, could I change the carpet?
Or it could be,
Could be
2 hours.
Yeah, or it could be 2 hours.
well. In closing, let me say that I'm glad you found at least 60 minutes for us.
Amen.
There you go. Hey, amen. Let's have an amen to it.
Cheers.
All the above.
Cheers.
All right. Nice.
And what is this?
Oh,
What are we
man.
drinking?
That is really tasty. I've not tasted this before.
No, man. You tell Eddie that we like that one.
Okay.
That's from Wild Turkey, you said?
Yeah, it's one of their. It's a
Prohibition,
prohibition flavors.
That is
WB
nice
Stoffel.
stuff.
It's minty.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add on the end before we or did we do it already?
Well, I'd like to remind everybody again, please share Whiskey Biz with your friends. And this one is mother approved, so you can share this episode
Mostly.
with your mom for the most part. Like us and comment and engage with us on Facebook and Instagram, Whiskey Business Podcast on Instagram. Our YouTube channel is Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis, and you have unedited versions of the podcast on the YouTube channel, which is very advantageous for you.
I told you in the text that we have a little thing called podcast remorse, but honestly, I don't think that there's anything to be remorseful about in this conversation.
I don't think so either. I can't think of.
I have
Probably
nothing.
me.
Not knowing you other than just through text messages and through our mutual friend.
Yeah.
I got to say, Father,
I feel like I know you better than you know me because listening to you growing up.
Well, yeah, you probably can get an idea because what you see is pretty much
It's authentic.
What you
Yeah,
get.
it's authentic. Authenticity.
There's not a lot holding back here on a regular
All
basis.
right, well, hold on. Let me Chuck, our buddy Chuck, give it. What?
Chip.
What he says, Charles.
He goes.
Dude, I'm
edit
just
this
new.
out
This
of
is
the
my first
YouTube.
time
Edit
here.
that one out.
Yeah.
Well, we got a YouTube comment from our buddy Chip.
You don't say.
Yeah, Chip.
Not Chuck?
No, come on. He goes by Chip, even though his name is Charles. These episodes keep getting better and better, down to earth, relatable guests and interview questions that are fun and interesting. The YouTube version is like a live show where accidents are part of the fun. Yes, more so than ever.
I would say so.
today.
There's been some talk.
Don't edit. He goes, never edit them. This is actually
Never
really
edit them.
funny
No,
because this is going to
We
be.
don't edit the YouTube.
Keep them coming. Thanks, Chip. Thanks, buddy.
We've been told to go Facebook Live as well. We might consider that one down the line.
The problem
as well.
with the Facebook's live's fun, but the problem is it's a lot of spoilers. Because
That's
they
true.
can watch it on
That's
Facebook
true.
Live
That's
without.
true. That's true. But it might be a fun
Listen,
experiment. Might be a
We'll
fun
work it out.
experiment.
And last but not least, Twitter, Whiskey Biz Show. Subscribe on iTunes, rate and review us. We might even read your review. Thank you much. Back to you. And now back to you.
Make sure you say it with a radio
Tom,
voice. Back to
And
you,
now,
Dino.
back to Dino. Playing Tom Ford.
I did some voice training. You can
Bells
do
of
it.
St. Mary.
I know I give him a lot of shit, but you have no idea, people, how much love and affection I have for that young man sitting over there.
He's told
to
me
my
as
left.
soon as he stops giving me shit, I need to worry.
Yeah, right.
Right. That's one of those things you gotta
that's
worry
one of
about.
those things and you have to worry about. So, we're going to wrap things up. Whiskey Business is a Never the Luck production, produced on the audio side by the son I never wanted, Greg Hansberry. And, of course, the always exceptional John Whitney on the YouTube video side. You put the cat head on there. That's a continuation. That's a continuation from a little theme we started last week. But thank you both, gentlemen, both. The guest bottle, appropriately enough, has been Heaven's Door. And God help us, I think we knocked on it pretty damn hard tonight.
Yeah, we did.
Don't you
I'd
think?
say so.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
I'd say so.
So hopefully that counts for something.
We'll work on you.
When it's all
When
said
you invite
and
a
done.
priest on, he looks at you and goes,
"Yeah, I know.
we got something to work on.
I know. The bottle, Heaven's Door, and the priest has been Father Nic Ventura. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sincerely, for being so candid and so refreshingly honest and upfront with your thoughts and your feelings. You don't know how much I appreciate that as the person interviewing you, and I think you'll find it amazing how much our viewers and listeners will appreciate it as well.
Hopefully, if you pray, please pray for me. I don't do this on my own, so
Yeah.
give it a shot.
And we'll pray for you if you slip a couple in for us in the process, because
It's a mutual business here.
yeah, agreed.
Salute.
Fair enough. Salute.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right, my friends. Until the next bottle. See ya.